Hello, welcome to the Grief Retreat. I'm Lucy.
And I'm Sam. I'm a rapid transformational therapist.
And I'm a grief recovery method specialist.
And together we're going to take you on the grief recovery process.
And we're going to give you hope and inspiration to take you from the darkness to the light.
Hi everyone and welcome to the Grief Retreat. I'm Sam.
And I'm Lucy.
And in today's episode we're going to be taking you through what actually is grief. So do you want to kick off, Luce?
Yeah, so what is grief? I think people associate grief to bereavement, don't they?
Absolutely. I know that I did.
Yeah.
A lot of people someone has to die.
Yeah, for you to experience grief. And actually grief, within your lifetime, you can experience up to 40 griefs, life events that cause you grief in your life. Imagine that's 40 losses that you can experience. And we'll go through them in a moment. But I think what happens is we experience a grief, not realising it's a grief. We suppress all the emotions, and then another grief happens. We suppress them emotions, and we're not actually dealing with each grief.
It just layers.
We're not processing it.
It's like a lasagna. You
Yeah.
just layer
You
and
just
layer
lay
and
it,
layer
yeah,
and layer
yeah.
the emotions over.
So you're not actually dealing with it. So
And that's when a lot of people then have a breakdown years later.
absolutely, and that's when then people are experiencing all these griefs, not realising their griefs, and their behaviours start to change. Obviously, their energy drops, their mental health issues kick in, depression, and they're not really associating it to the grief.
Absolutely.
So
should we just go through a couple?
Yeah.
So I think it's because I know for sure I always related grief to the loss of a loved one, but what I know now from experience and training is that it's the loss of anything significant in your life that you no longer have or are connected with. So it could be the loss of a pet.
Yeah.
From a childhood.
Absolutely, yeah.
You mentioned on a previous episode financial loss.
Yeah.
Living a certain lifestyle, having this financial kind of, I suppose, experience to losing it all.
Yeah.
That is the significant loss as well, isn't it?
Well, it's anything we say. Obviously, grief is a normal and natural reaction to loss. And then grief is any massive change in your life that it negatively impacts your life. So any big change will be a grief.
Yeah.
So like you say, obviously a pet loss, like I lost my business. It was a massive loss, something I built up for 14 years, lost that.
Got friendship loss.
Mum and dad splitting up.
Huge, that is.
When you're young,
huge.
So, let's go back to, and this is what we both do in our professions, is we go back to childhood.
Yeah.
So we go a look at the timeline, and I do it's called a loss history graph, and so we go right back and start and look at all the losses throughout your life, and things like abuse will come up, physical or sexual abuse, or which sometimes, you believe it or not, people have actually suppressed
And can't remember.
and they don't want to think about it. So imagine you've got all these emotions and feelings
And put a big block on it.
and you've blocked it all, and it's just suppressed inside you. How is that coming out?
Brutal.
It's going to come out in some way, isn't it? I've noticed actually mum and dad splitting up when you're young, it affects people massively.
It affects your future relationships.
Yeah.
And then when you become a parent yourself, it'll probably affect your parenting. And I don't always mean negatively, but a lot of the time the experiences that you have as a child between being born to 11 create the beliefs that you have and shape your future.
Yeah.
So it's, divorce is huge, I think.
Yeah.
It's not one to be underestimated.
No, absolutely. So mum and dad, I coach children with mum and dad splitting up. It affects them hugely, and it's great now that children are being seen for that, and the understanding that how it affects them. So yeah, mum and I, if you look at my dad left when I was 2.
Wow.
Yeah, so I never had a father figure in my life. And that was a huge grief for me. It was massive, and everyone would be like their dads would be there, and my dad wasn't.
Yeah,
Of course. It's like dad's coming to school, and I didn't have a dad.
Yeah.
But I did have my brothers, and I had you know, my uncles and stuff was big, had a big influence in my life.
But it's still not your dad.
Still not your dad.
It's still brilliant.
And
it's
he wasn't,
amazing,
but he
but it's
wasn't
still
even
not.
in my life. I never saw him. It was like very intermittent, and when he came, it was a bit toxic. So, but then again, I look at that and think, you know, my mum, I had a really nice upbringing. I didn't have all that, you know, arguing, mum and dad shouting, and I had none of that. My mum, I didn't have boyfriends and stuff, so it was just me, my mum, and my siblings. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, definitely, because you don't want people thinking just stay together.
No,
because of the kids.
no,
Like,
absolutely
don't divorce
not.
because you're going to harm your kids. We're like, no.
It's how, but it does affect them though, and I think divorce has certainly affected my two children.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the dynamics, isn't it? Again, of the family changing, moving on to new relationships. Like they've got a new sister now, and she's obviously 5 now, but it's, you know, then they've got their other family. And it's like, it's just all the change.
Because we all have a role to play, don't we, in our family? So it's kind of figuring out how that all fits together.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you've got not only your parents splitting up, but we've both split up from our first husbands.
Yeah.
I'm on number 2. Watch out, Andy.
Yeah. I can't even find number 2.
I've tried. You will. We'll get there.
No, I've tried. I've given myself a bit of a break now because but hopefully that will happen.
But that's...
Yeah.
Divorce is, that takes you down. That takes you down.
God, doesn't it just?
In many ways that were not expected, or I remember having like 3 months off work. I was a nurse back then, clinical nurse specialist, and I remember being signed off work for 3 months with depression because it was, you just being knocked, and you're just clawing your way out this hole, and you just knock back down. And
well, it's like you said before, it's I created this life for me, my 2 children and my husband, a home, a business, family unit. Like we had the perfect, what looked like the perfect life. And especially when I've come from a family that's a single mom, I was really proud of that.
yeah,
I was like, oh my God, look at what I've created here. And
because that's ultimately from a kid growing up without that.
And I've created that for my
was.
girls. You know, I was super proud of it. And for me to lose that and my parents at the same time was just like my whole family was obliterated.
Of course.
Yeah. So I've really struggled with that. I really struggled with losing that family unit because I was so proud of it. But I've obviously, through all the work I've done on myself, I've realised, you know, it wasn't right.
Yeah, definitely.
And I've had to accept that sometimes, you know, 2 people outgrow each other, want different things, and unfortunately,
It's
okay. It happens. And then it's like, actually, I had a wonderful marriage at times, and I've got 2 beautiful children, and we have to just accept where we are, and and forgive and let go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think every loss teaches you something, negative and positive. It gives you something to take lessons from in the challenges.
Yeah.
And it grows you as a person. Like, I know, as much as when I split up with my husband, like I literally hated him at that time. I hope he never watches this.
He will. He definitely will.
And hi, Ian. But now I have so much, I suppose, gratitude for that relationship. Like, I don't regret any of it.
We can't regret,
because
can we?
it came into my life at the right time. It gave me everything I needed back then, and it taught me so much that I've took into my future, good and bad.
Yeah.
And it's helped shape me as I am. So I think one of the things I've learned from being in business for 10 years is that you don't learn when you're, you know, on stage getting the awards, and you don't learn when you're earning the money. You learn in the challenges, in the dark times.
Of course, yeah.
And,
and you learn from failure as well.
Yeah, and all these losses, as much as they are brutal at the time and harmful, they also teach you so much that you can move forward and just really become, I think, a real well-balanced, rounded person.
Yeah. Again, we're talking about growing from our grief, not letting it define us.
Yeah. And I think allowing people to understand that when they listen to this, I thought it was just about someone dying. No. If you've lost anything of significance that's created a change in your life, this podcast is for you.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get something from it.
You've mentioned as well, you moved out and moved into your mum and dad.
Can you imagine that, 33, living on your mum and dad's sofa?
Oh, God.
No, it wasn't good.
No. And again, at the end of the day, you're like, what the hell has happened here? Like, I thought I had this, and now I'm here. And same for me, I left my marital home. And that was my decision, and I took my 2 children and I moved into an apartment. But that was a huge loss. I didn't realise at the time, and how my children dealt with that. I often look back and think, wow, that was such a big change for them.
And just even a different routine.
We didn't even have a garden.
Yeah, no.
Do you know what I mean? It was like, what have I done? But it was part of my journey.
Absolutely.
And I had to
also,
do it.
I think the lifestyle that maybe we both led back then.
Yes, definitely.
What's the word I'm trying to look for? So we lived this lifestyle where maybe the handbags and the shoes and the cars and all that kind of stuff was so important to us.
We thought it was.
And now we can live our life without any of that.
Yeah.
Which is where you have a great foundation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you can live without any of that and be truly happy.
Well, I did. I mean, God, when I went through such financial difficulty after my divorce, like literally didn't have, it was horrendous. Couldn't even clothe my children at one point. That's how bad it was. But again, that's taught me and my children that you go through struggles. Like, I took my girls out of a bubble.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
So I took them out of that family home and that bubble, and I've took them into struggles. And, you know, that's been hard for me to go, oh, God, I could have just left them in this stable environment where it was financially stable. But I wasn't happy.
Yeah, of course.
So what do you do?
What's the trade-off?
What's the, you know? But now I look at it, you know, obviously now I've come through it and things are, things are a lot better financially and stuff, and we're a lot more stable in every aspect. But I've taught them what's right and how you should be treated.
Absolutely. And also challenges will come. Me and you will have more challenges in the years to come, but I'm not scared of them.
Yeah. And my girls are like, oh my God, look how well you're doing now, Mum, we're so proud of you. And because especially my eldest, because she's seen me rock bottom, you know, she's probably been affected by seeing me change so much. And she's just like, I'm so proud of you, Mum. And so I've shown her
what's possible.
What is possible. Like, you can rebuild your life. You can pull yourself out of negative and toxic marriages, relationships. You don't have to put up with it.
No.
And
don't be fearful of change. Don't be fearful of challenges.
Yeah, exactly.
Know that, I mean, one of the things that I do say a lot now is that it'll work out. It will all work out.
Yeah.
We've just got to go through this process. But I think
it's a lot of self-belief though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think I've had many dips where I haven't believed in myself enough, and other people have made me not believe in myself.
Stripped it away
Stripped it from me. So, and again, it's a lot of pulling yourself back up and like, no, actually, I am worth this. I can do this and I will do it.
But anyone with any good story never starts with it's
No.
all just been rosy and the champagne
course
came
it
out.
hasn't.
Every good story worth a read has come from challenge and fear
And failure
challenge
and everything else.
And then when you get the good stuff, the love, the beautiful relationships, the happy friendships, the real connection, it's just the most wonderful feeling.
And the fact, you know, I feel like now, which I'm really proud of myself, that I can literally sit in my house on my own and be happy just being there.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but that was hard at one point.
Bloody hard.
Could be on my own in the shower.
Do it.
Never mind. Anywhere else with my own thoughts.
As soon as I dropped my kids off, I was gone. Like, right, being in the house on my own, no chance.
Yeah.
You know, I would just sob, or I'd just be, the thoughts were coming in, like, say, all the intrusive thoughts, and I'd just be like, oh my God, get me out of here. And then it'd be destruction. I'd go and, you know, be self-destruct. So, yeah, so the fact that I've got myself to that point, well, I don't feel the need to be doing anything but being present.
And with yourself.
Yeah. I need to cough. Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Take your time because we can just cut that bit out.
Please don't put this in.
Have some water.
I think the water went down the wrong hole. So annoying. Oh, that happened to me at a retreat the other day, and I went to that retreat.
Yeah.
We were meditating.
Oh God.
Doing yin yoga. And I'm lying there and I needed to cough, and I coughed once, and then I was like, oh my God.
And everyone's really quiet.
Everyone's in yin yoga. And I don't know how I managed to stop it. I was like, it was awful. There's nothing worse, is there, when you're in them situations? Oh, God. Oh, it was just right. What was we on then, anyway? How far was we?
15.
Okay. This is quite a short one, though, I think. We don't need to talk
let's
about
talk.
it much more.
Yeah, no, I think we need to talk a bit more, but we haven't spoke about more griefs, really. Talk about moving home, financial, losing your business, mum and dad splitting up.
Friendship, then. Should we do that one next?
Oh, dear.
We don't need to mention
we're not mentioning anyone's name.
anything.
No.
We'll just be like friendship. Yeah, because I can say out,
What else? Other griefs?
what's the other one? Hold on, let me just think what we've got. Financial, we've done. Divorce from parents and yourselves. Pets, the death of a loved one. Career.
Yeah, and
Losing
business.
a career, business you mentioned.
Yeah, but career's really, a huge grief.
Friendship.
Being made redundant, stuff like that.
Okay. So we'll just start. Should we just start?
Okay,
talking?
do you want to just start,
Yes.
talk about losing your career as a nurse? Yeah. Go on then.
God, you're making me cough now.
Let's get our coffee out.
Yeah, so another grief is the loss of a career. So it could be getting made redundant or having to make the choice to make that change brings a lot of fear. Will it work? Won't it work? What am I doing? And because you've got to become someone new, haven't you? Yeah. You've got to start again. So you're back to the beginning, especially if you've built a business up or had a job and a career that you get to a certain position and you're well respected and well liked, and all of a sudden something happens in your life and you have to make a change, whether you make that or someone takes that away from you.
Yeah.
That's a huge loss. So I wasn't made redundant, but when Zoe died and Sophia came literally 2 months later, like I'm burying my sister in the February, in the April I'm giving birth to Sophia.
Yeah.
Dealing with that together was
so
hard.
Massive emotions. You wanted this baby so
long.
Yeah.
And I got my dream.
Yeah.
But I had to lose my sis in the process.
Wow.
So we can talk about the impacts of that later, but I think what I did at that time was say, I can't go back to nursing. And I'd been a nurse for so long. I loved my job. I loved being a nurse to the point where it makes me feel emotional.
What was it that stopped you going back?
I just found it very... I had anxiety, even to go into hospital. And I just couldn't even go on the car park without crying. And then, of course, I was diagnosed with separation anxiety. So I couldn't leave Sophia. So how am I going to go and do 12-hour shifts? The hospital I worked at was an hour away from home. My daughter's just been diagnosed with a peanut allergy. If something happens, I want to be the one that's there. I want to be the one that's looking after her, kind of thing. How would it work? Financially, it didn't make sense. But I think letting go of that career, even though I started a new business literally months later and thrived and loved it, and, I'm still doing that 9 years later, letting go of nursing was very... I just didn't find it easy, as much as it might have looked easy to the outside. Oh, here she's building a business, everything's amazing. It was the loss of Zoe plus the loss of her career plus having Sophia with a nut allergy, which was a fear of loss every single day.
Yeah.
And I think the loss of career was because that's all I'd ever been, all I'd ever known.
Yeah.
I was a nurse and I was proud and this is who I am, and I'd go and put my uniform on and that's what I was known for. And at work I was well respected and thought of, and I was a part of the team. I drove the team, and all of a sudden I was, and you get that when you become a mummy anyway.
Yeah.
That's quite a normal process of becoming a mum. You do, again, lose your identity when you've had a baby. Well, who am I now? So I had that as well. But I think the career, it took me some time to be okay with not being a nurse. And I remember for a long time, I'd always say to people, I'm a nurse. I used to be a nurse, because that was...
Yeah.
Your work plays such a big part of your life.
Absolutely, and you were proud of it, wasn't you? Yeah,
and I think some people don't need a life purpose. They're happy to go and do a job they don't really like. And that suits them. I'm not like that. I need a life purpose. I need to be doing something. So when I didn't have that as a nurse, it felt like a huge loss to me as well. Which I'm sure it did with you, with letting your businesses go.
Yeah, no, God, I built exactly that. That was my identity. I built up a business. So I did a business degree. And then, I was running my own business. I was proud of it. We bought a lot of properties and we were running, we had staff, and you know, I felt proud of what we'd achieved.
And also, when you talk to people, the first thing people ask you, what do you do?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's the first thing. So when you have built up this amazing,
and you're proud of it.
you're proud, you want to fly the flag.
Yeah.
And then when you've lost it, you're like, I don't want anyone to ask me that question.
Oh, I know. And so so then I literally went through, and I used to make fun of it and say, I don't do anything anymore. I'm literally loving doing nothing. Because, and I was still doing stuff. I started doing events, but that was very ad hoc, and it was, you know,
it was filling the gap.
It was filling. That was a distraction for me. Like you said of your work, me doing my events, because I did a lot for charity. So when I first lost my mum and stepdad, I did a lot for charity. Yeah. I raised a lot of money for St Giles Hospice.
You want to do something?
I wanted to do something. Wanted to give back, and it was a massive distraction. So I was all right when I was doing that, and then then I'd crash again. So you're just like this, aren't you?
Yeah.
And then something else would come along that would hit me. So obviously career, I mean, divorce, as we've spoke about already, but actually when you go through a divorce and actually going to court and going through that process is absolutely soul destroying.
Yeah. I actually had a similar conversation with someone last night about that.
Yeah.
And they were saying
soul
to me,
destroying.
it literally strips you from everything.
It's horrendous. It's, why am I sat in court with the man I loved, had 2 children with, trying to prove myself, my worth in my marriage, what I did, do you know what I mean, and what I brought to the table, and everything
kind of
else.
feels alien because he knows who you really are.
It's just awful.
Spent years with you.
For me, that was worse than cheating or anything else. It is soul destroying.
I went to court with a friend of mine, and I was only the spectator to support her.
Yeah.
And it affected me for weeks.
Really?
So I can't even begin to imagine.
Oh, it's
because I've not
horrendous.
been through that. We didn't have to do that.
Didn't have to do it, yeah. Well, we didn't have to. It was a completely unnecessary process, a waste of time and money.
Yeah.
You know, it could have been settled.
And financial.
Financially, nearly ruined me. Like like I said, I nearly went bankrupt. Like I said, bankruptcy and stuff like that is a massive grief. You know, I literally was nearly bankrupt.
There's a lot of shame around bankruptcy.
Oh my God.
I mean, I don't feel that, but there is a lot of shame.
Yeah, of course, but I didn't want to go bankrupt. I didn't want to. I lost all my properties. That was bad enough. You know, and then I was like, I don't want to go bankrupt. Yeah, I mean, at the time of all that happening, I just felt so worthless. How much more am I failing at? You know, I'm just failing. Marriage has failed. My business has failed. Then I was having, obviously, you know, I'd gone into multiple new relationships as well, which at the time I was like, why am I doing this? Why do I keep doing this? But I know now. It was a distraction, and it was obviously making me feel better at the time.
Numbing the pain.
So again, I'm going into relationships again, which were failing.
And that's another loss then.
And I'm like, another loss, another fail. I failed again. I'm like, for God's sake, what is wrong with me?
And I think with multiple losses, what you end up thinking is, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Why are these people leaving me?
Yeah.
Why don't they love me? Why don't they like me? What's wrong with me? And then you turn the mirror up to yourself and everything gets blamed on you. And that's when you strip yourself of your worth, your confidence, your self-esteem.
Yeah.
And luckily for us, that's what we reinstill
Yeah.
with our services and our professional now.
Yeah.
But that for me was something I never knew. I didn't know that grief would strip you of your confidence, self-esteem and worth.
Yeah.
But that negative
But
self-talk,
sometimes you can look confident, like a lot, you know,
course.
friends were like, you know, I'll be out there partying or doing, looking like I'm having the time of my life.
but it's inside.
I wasn't, you know, I was hurting. And,
I remember.
And when I went out, listen, I had a good time, and it made me feel better at the time. So
Short-term fix.
the short-term fixes again, which we're going to go into later. But, you know, but when I come back and I'm on my own,
Yeah.
and then reality hits you, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I used to do the same, me and Andy and little Sophia. we used to be travelling a lot with the company that I worked with, and I'd do all these big achievements, and we'd get called on stage, and I'd be like, yay, and having the photos done, and be like, oh my God, life's amazing. But then we'd go back to the hotel room, and me and Andy would very often have a fight. I'd get really stressed over little things, like I can't be late because they'll be judging me for being late or something. And then we'd clash. So a lot of the time it's not what people see, it's what lies beneath. And I think that's a real key message in the work that we do. We're always just stripping the back, the layers, what's going on inside, because we can all put on the face, we can all put on the mask. But actually that only serves you for so long.
Yeah. So many people do put on that mask.
And it's not to underestimate loss either. So really quickly about when we said, even losing a pet, I had a very dear friend, Kay, who lost her dog recently. She's absolutely heartbroken. And, other people, of course, who maybe don't have a pet and don't understand the relationship, but it's really impacted her.
Yeah. I know, I can imagine. I mean, you've got a dog, I've got a dog. My dog was 5 the other day, and I can't imagine my life without him now. So
have a little spirit animal. They're healers.
I know. So so I obviously got back Bailey when 5 years ago. So when I was in my deep grief, and he's been a saviour to me, because obviously he gets me out walking and clearing my head, and
someone to look after.
Yeah, and I spend when my girls are at their dad's, and now my eldest daughter's gone to uni, I'm on my own quite a lot. Yeah. Actually.
So you talk to your dog, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Like Bailey comes up and jumps on me and have a cuddle. He sleeps with me every night. And that's going to have to change soon, I think. So he's, and he's been my little saviour. So, pet loss is huge.
Yeah, and I think any loss really, it's the emotion you attach to it, isn't it? Like we mentioned, and it's all important. It's all valid. Yeah. Your feelings are real.
Yeah. And we need to be allowed to feel.
Yeah.
So this is, massive for me. You need to feel it to heal it. You've got to feel your emotions, and people don't. They're scared.
Yeah. Well, people think their emotions are going to hurt them. Yeah. But actually, I'm a big believer that we're all here to go through each emotion, to experience it during our lifetime. Yeah. And that's why sometimes you'll see your friend who's thriving and you're struggling. Well, at that time, but the tables will turn. You'll have a year of thriving and they might be struggling. Yeah. But I think it's important that we don't be scared of our emotions, because you don't have to attach them to you and hold them. They are just passing by. But if you don't acknowledge and explore them and accept them, they can't go. They can't fuck off.
Yeah, exactly.
They want to stay around. Yeah. So you've
got to learn how to, this is what I do in my programmes, and you do the same, help them, release that pain and them emotions.
Got to face them.
Got to release them. We can all suppress, we can all block, with different coping mechanisms, but they're unhealthy.
It'll catch up with you.
It catches up with you. It most certainly caught up with me. And unfortunately, in grief, it's how we react to grief. And so we have to take responsibility for our grief at some point and say, right, I can't let this continue. I've got to make changes.
And I think the last one is the friendship. That's the big one as well, isn't it? The friendship loss. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that every human on this planet has had a friend that they've lost, whether it's their fault or whether it's the friends. We've all had friendship breakups. And there's a great saying, isn't it, that friends come into your life for a season, a lifetime, or to teach you something.
Reason. Yeah.
Well, at the time when you split up with friends, it's painful, it's brutal. Again, that self-blame, that self-love disappears. You think it's you. And I've had multiple friendship losses, just like yourself. And I think when we get older, well, actually, no, that's not true. Even from a young child, the friends are everything to you. Family are your family, but your friendships, they become family.
Yeah, of course
and they're so important part of your identity and who you are and who you spend your time with. Your friends see a different side of you to what maybe your mum and dad would. Of
course.
So that friendship loss is...
it's painful. Me a lot. It's painful, extremely painful. I have unfortunately lost quite a few friends recently, and I've just had to accept that, we do outgrow friends, and when in life we go on different paths and different journeys, and unfortunately if them friendships aren't serving you and they're making you feel negative and they're toxic, you know, you've got to remove yourself and, surround yourself with people that love you and know you inside out.
Yeah, and people that will
I've
be
got your
there.
back.
There's what's the saying? The people that will ride the bus or the limo with you.
Yeah.
Like whether you're on your
Yeah.
knees in trouble with 50p
Yeah.
or whether you've got 50 grand in the
Yeah,
bank and
and
you're
I think a
thriving.
lot of it as well is about whether you're up there or you're down there. Your friends, there's no judgment. Like the judgment, that's what got me. It's like judging everything you're doing and talking, and it's like we all go through things differently.
Yeah. And the grief journey itself, when you're in deep grief from the loss of your parents, from the loss of my sister, which we will touch on at a later date, is the behaviours. Our behaviours did change. There were things that we reacted and responded to which we regret.
Yeah.
And we know we'll be open about it.
Absolutely.
But there's certain people that will have judged us for that, would have maybe removed us from circles because of that, would have talked about us because of that. And I think at that time...
But if a friend knows you...
Yeah.
Right, they know this isn't you. So
That's
they're
not
like,
how you normally
this
behave.
person is hurting. This person is not behaving normally, and so it's how you deal with that person, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you can try and do that, but sometimes in life we just have to
let go
and move on. Forgiveness is always there, but we have to just protect ourselves and our mental well-being.
But I think friendship loss is a huge one for people
it's
because it
massive.
happens in a cycle. It's always
massive.
happening.
Yeah.
So
I can see even now, obviously, with my girls,
being that age they are,
being the friendship groups and everything's going on, and I'm really trying to give them so much advice on friendships because certain behaviours, unfortunately, we put up with. Because we don't want to upset the friendship group.
Don't want to be isolated.
We shouldn't
excluded.
We shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to. And I'm teaching my girls know what behaviour is acceptable. There's only so much you will take. So friendship is a huge one.
I
think we've covered them all.
I think that is...
It's quite a lot,
isn't there? So there's 40 losses you can have in your life.
There's up to 40 life events that can cause grief in your life. And they start from a very young age.
From a little baba.
From baby. And this is why throughout our life, mental health, depression, addictions and all that is hitting us because we're dealing with all this grief. We're not knowing how to deal with it. And
I'm sure you'll agree that when we work with clients now, the root cause is always come back to somebody that's left a relationship that was lost.
Yeah.
That's always the root cause of maybe their low self-esteem, their confidence, their behaviours, their anxiety.
All of it.
Always.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd known that.
I know, I do.
Because I'm going to blame myself.
I massively want to get into, at the moment, I'm trying to get into schools to help children understand grief. Why isn't it taught in schools? It's the biggest thing that happens to us in our life, but we're not taught how to deal with it.
No. It's like people are scared of the conversation. They avoid it. But the thing is, people do that when they see you, when you just lost someone. They're like, oh, I don't want to bump into her. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And people, it's a weird topic, but actually, fingers crossed, by doing this podcast, we're going to shine the light, raise a bit of awareness. It's okay to talk about it.
That's it. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Okay, so I think that one's episode's done, isn't it? So we'll move on to the next one. Thanks for listening.